We are in Nashville, Tennessee at the ISRI board meeting, and I am lucky enough to have Jim Keefe with GIE Media. Jim is the publisher and editor of Recycling Today magazine, and I am so excited to have him here today.
Well, thankfully, I'm just the publisher, not the editor. I've got a great team of wonderful journalists that work for the magazine.
Jim, how long have you been with GIE?
28 years.
28 years. Have you seen a lot of changes in 28 years?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, the media business has changed totally. And I would say that also the recycling industry has entirely changed over that period.
So before we get to the recycling industry, I want to know, do people read magazines anymore? I mean, I get it all on my phone. You guys send me a lot of stuff. Do I get news through magazines anymore?
So that's a question a lot of people ask these days. What's the future of magazines? And what we see and what we hear from a lot of our readers is magazines aren't dead, no stretch, but they've changed. Magazines aren't about news today. News is quick and it has a really fast cycle. So we report a lot of news through our internet, websites, e-newsletters, but the magazine is really dedicated to business intelligence, deep dive looks into market analysis kind of things.
That's great, and that answers the question, because that's exactly what I use the magazine for. And when I want to know something more about a subject, that's what you do. You read an article about it.
Yeah, if you think about it, when I first started, we reported a lot of news in the magazine, right? But in the print world, you have to work through a production process to get a whole magazine laid out. It's got to be sent to the printer, print, go through the postal service, get delivered to your office. Right. By the time any news that we would put in there would get to your office, it's history.
Old news.
It's really old at that point. So we don't publish very much news. We don't even think that is a component of really what a print magazine is about today.
It makes total sense to me. I appreciate it, and I like the work that you do. So because you're in the magazine business and you're not really in the recycling business, you have a different perspective of this industry. What perspective, what does it look like from your side of the table on the recycling industry? What trends are you seeing? What's happening in recycling that maybe we don't see as clearly?
Well, I think, we publish Recycling Today magazine. We publish Construction and Demolition Recycling and Recycling Today Global Edition, which is a worldwide distribution. And then we also have Waste Today magazine for the garbage business. What we see in the recycling industry today is it's going through an absolute period of transformation. It's fundamentally changing. I share with people the idea that this isn't the only one, but when China entered the market, and let's just call it more or less 20 years ago, they changed the industry, right? A lot of things changed. Now, as China exits, maybe not entirely yet to be seen, the industry, or as such a large destination. We just saw in the trade committee meeting some of the statistics about the change in the material shipments to China.
How much less is going to China?
How much less. That is also transforming the industry and changing it. So we see a movement back to the production of specification raw materials. The industry kind of moved away from that. In fact, interestingly, Recycling Today was founded back in 1963, originally as Secondary Raw Materials magazine. And then it was changed to Recycling Today in 1968. So that's happening. The other big thing that we see happening is the deployment of technology. It's changing the business from artificial intelligence to robots to smart equipment. That is a very, very big change in the industry.
So you've been a part of ISRI. You're actually a member of my chapter, which is the Northern Ohio chapter.
Yeah.
And so as a magazine, a publisher, to be a part of ISRI, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, most of the people have equipment to sell or are scrap yards. How come a publisher is part of our industry?
Well, again, our job is to be a market observer and to help be a conduit to facilitate industry discussion, the disbursement of industry information, market intelligence, research. And so by being involved with ISRI, we learn a lot about what's going on in the industry. We visit with a lot of our readers to understand what are the opportunities and challenges that they see in their business. But at the same time, our company, GIE Media, we believe in being involved in the industries that we serve and also contributing to give back. I was years ago pulled into becoming a board member of the Northern Ohio chapter. Good friend of mine who was a scrap dealer, and I said, "What? This makes no sense to me. Why the hell do you want me? I'm a publisher. I don't do this every. I don't understand. I mean, I get it, but I don't do what y'all do every day." He said, "Exactly. You have a different perspective on the industry than any of us because we are immersed in our business every day, running our yard, running our operation, whatever that means. You visit operations all over the country, all over the world, consuming mills. You have a very different perspective, and that vantage point can help inform us as to how we should be thinking about moving forward as a trade association." So I think there is a role that we play.
Well, we appreciate it. Nonetheless, we appreciate it. We think it's great, and we're so glad that you are a member. Jim, as an outsider looking in, are there different trends in the country that maybe aren't everywhere?
Well, there are. I would say that's a little bit truer on the post-consumer side than it is on the scrap side. Certainly there are some differences in materials if you look at Southern California versus New England, even in the scrap business, right? There just are. But basically there's a lot more consistency in the scrap world. Whereas when you look at the post-consumer world, well, you've got landfill issues in the Northeast that you don't have in the mountain region, for example, or the Midwest. You have regulatory frameworks, landfill bans for certain materials that exist in the northeastern U.S. that doesn't exist in other parts of the country. So there are more differences, I would say, on that side. And we see also in the construction and demolition recycling segment more differences geographically.
Before we close, are you working on any big articles that are coming out?
Well, one of the things that we're working on is a state of the scrap industry report that we're going to publish later this year. And we see a scrap metal industry that is fundamentally changing today. It's fundamentally changing. And we're going to take a deep dive look at that. Materials are changing. In the post-consumer side, we have this term called the evolving ton, right? But materials are changing. Electric cars, body composition on automobiles, washers and dryers, what are those things made from? Materials are changing. And the specifications, the requirements for consumers to buy and consume those materials are also changing. We're going to be taking a hard look at that stuff.
That sounds great. Now, what about if someone has an idea for an article? How do they get in touch with us?
Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. We absolutely are always, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the things that we develop come from ideas from professionals like yourself who are in the industry who say, hey, you guys should cover this. So send us an email, visit our website, you can go through our contact page there. We'd love to hear from you.
That sounds great. Jim Keefe, Recycling Today Magazine.